What's going on, everybody? This is the Feed To Embiid. I am your host, Austin Krell, along with a guy who loves the new age Philly sports media, Brock Landis. Brock, how are you, my good pal?
I'm chilling, Austin. The semester just ended, so I've got some time off, but I can't really be chilling because we've got a Sixer season coming up in less than, what is it? It's 8:30 now, so we've got less than 24 hours until preseason. So we're not in chill mode all too much longer. We got to churn out the content. You know what that lifestyle is like.
That's right. Yeah.
What is that? What is that, though? Is that a fresh cut?
You already know.
Okay, Austin.
Okay. I'm moving to Florida on Saturday, so we'll be broadcasting live from Florida for 3 months, and then I'll be back here. So I want to get a little bit of top off.
Well, you're going through a midlife crisis. You got to figure yourself out a little bit down in Florida.
Yeah, exactly. You know me. So we have a lot to talk about today. Obviously, the Harden rumors continue to fly. As of this morning, your own Weitzman says that Houston wants 3 first-round picks plus Ben Simmons. We'll get into that later. Right now, let's top it off with the first preseason game of the season that begins tomorrow. Opens up, I think, 7:30 p.m. Tomorrow against the Celtics, and it will be in Philly. I believe Daniel Tice is out. He did not want to get basically beat up on by Embiid. He was enjoying his nice time off to not feel like coming back to an abrupt awakening like that. Yeah. Then Kemba Walker is going to be out for a while. But enough about that. Let's just sort of discuss our expectations for that first game. And before we do that, wanted to welcome everybody to the show. We do have 7 people listening live right now, watching live. Keep commenting in the comment section. We always love engaging with you guys, and we'll be answering your questions. Responding to your comments and this, that, and the other throughout this episode. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube at the Painted Line. Subscribe to Brock, his YouTube channel. What is it, Landis Brock or Brock Landis?
Brock Landis.
Brock Landis. And then make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts. We will be posting them there. As always, make sure to give us a rating and a review, and we're always appreciative. Also, one last thing, another reminder: we now have a podcast brand store. The link is in our Twitter bio at the Feed To Embiid. You can go there, buy your custom Feed To Embiid products. We appreciate any source of revenue we can get, of course. Now, no more advertising. We're going to go to basketball now. Imagine that. So preseason game 1 is tomorrow, and it sounds like Doc's lineup is going to be Joel, Tobias, Ben, Seth, and Danny Green. Not necessarily, by a positional. Like I wasn't naming those by positions. Like Ben isn't playing small forward, I don't think. Mm-hmm. I don't think Danny Green's playing point guard either. But those are really the 5 that he goes with, and I think for me, the big thing that I want to see early on in this affair is just what does it look like? Is there some natural chemistry there? I think there should be some natural chemistry there because Ben and Joel at their best had 2 really good shooters next to them in Marco and in Covington and in Redick and Dario. They're pretty much surrounded by good shooters all the time when they were at their best. And I think you have veterans in that lineup that understand just naturally how to play basketball off of other people. And I think it's conducive with Ben Simmons there as a facilitator to them just having success playing a natural, intuitive brand of basketball, at least while they're trying to figure out the offense. So I'm interested to see what the turnovers look like if things are clunky in the early goings. I do think that having a new coach and a new system is going to make things a little harder for Joe and for Ben early on. But I am curious as to what you think about just like what you're looking out for early on tomorrow.
Sure. For Philadelphia, I think defensively they're not going to have any problems, especially against a shorthanded Boston team. But Doc Rivers said in his press conference recently that offensively the team isn't where he thinks they're going to be, but for the time being he's where he wants them to be. So in other words, offensively, there's things he's going to implement in the half court, maybe a pick and roll set or DHOs, things of that sort, pin downs, double screens. But at the moment, there's just too much to implement. There's too many new faces. There's too much new personnel. And on top of that, you may have technical issues. You may have issues at practice. Things might be delayed in terms of starting time. All of these curveballs are thrown at the team. So I don't expect them to click right away offensively. But I do think they should win this game pretty easily. We'll talk more about the outcome. But in looking at Boston, they also had a shortened time frame to prepare, a little less time than Philadelphia because of that first-round exit. But this year, they're playing without Kemba Walker for some time, and that'll be a significant loss for them. And Gordon Hayward is a Hornet now, and they both rank second and fourth, respectively, in touches for Boston. Tristan Thompson, he slightly tweaked his hamstring, so he'll be sidelined for at least until the season opener. You have new primary ball handlers in Jeff Teague, Peyton Pritchard. Carson Edwards might get some burn there. So Boston, too, has to really overcome these curveballs that was thrown at them. Injuries, new faces, inexperience. I mean, Aaron Nesmith, a rookie they drafted, hasn't played since January. So all things considered, it may be a sloppy brand of basketball, but given everything Philadelphia has already, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, Seth Curry, a veteran, and Danny Green, I think they should be able to handle Boston pretty easily in this preseason opener.
Yeah, truth be told, I am not too concerned about wins or losses in a preseason game. I mean, I'm just not. I think, first of all, I mean, the last couple of years, Sixers have been very good in the preseason, and it hasn't really.
Yeah, they put that Chinese team on straps, and Ben had his first three in that game from the corner.
Yeah,
actually, I was there with.
It was above the break. Remember that? It was above the break.
Oh, it was above the break. I was sitting courtside with the queen of the Mike Scott Hive. Zoe was there, I think. I forget who some of the faces were, but I was at Twitter and I got a DM, and they were like, "You wanna come to the game?" I was like, "Sure, I'll come." So that was a fun experience.
Wow. Okay. And now I'm sure you're still in contact with all of them, right?
Yeah, something like that. I see them in passing.
Yeah. So I'm not looking at wins or losses really at all. I'm looking to see like who pops out and what that fit looks like. And I do expect there to be a certain level of, I guess, high frequency turnover in both the half court setting and the full court setting, just because new coaching staff, new system, a lot of different voices trying to sort of assimilate together into one unit. And I think they're gonna just try to be pushing the pace a lot more, like they've said. They're trying to play fast pace. When you do that, you're more conducive. You're more likely to make mistakes, and that happens turnovers. So I'm kind of interested to see what those turnovers like, but I'm also interested to see like what is a Ben and Joel structured offense look like? Like what does it look like when there actually are plays there, or there's a system there that has principles to it, rather than just feeling out the game organically. Christopher Moody says, when does the preseason game start, tonight or tomorrow? Well, it's 8:45 tonight, and there's no game on, so not tonight. It's tomorrow. 7:30 p.m. is tip-off. So usually that means, just for those who kind of don't notice this, but when they say 7:30 tip-off, it usually means 7:38. When it's a 7 p.m. tip-off, usually 7:08. So don't rush if you're not there by 7:29. Take your time, get home safely, and the game will be there by 7:38 for you. Kevin Cronin says, "What up, Go Sixers, Eagles, Flyers, and Phillies." Yes, go though. Let's go 3 of those 4 teams. The Phillies are still in jail because they're imbeciles. But yes, let's root on those home teams for the fans. That's for sure. Brock, so I keep thinking this, like, is this starting lineup something where it's like as cut and dry, or as
you get a new haircut? Your phone starts blowing up now. The Florida. Come on, man. They're all over you. You're on it.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. So when you think of this team, I think it's like an obvious what a starting lineup looks like. It's Danny, it's Danny, it's Seth, it's Ben, Tobias, Joel. Sure. I thought for a while that they were going to go Shake because they've been endorsing the hell out of him in practice. And I had heard some things off record. But it sounds like Doc's going in a different direction, which I guess is to be expected, some degree. Now, there was like one change you would make to the starting lineup where it's sort of outside of the box and it makes sense. What do you think it is?
Well, practically, I think it would be Shake Milton playing point guard and giving him more responsibilities. But something different that I think you could experiment with in the preseason definitely against the team that doesn't really have a center outside of Robert Williams, would be maybe playing Ben Simmons at the 5. You might not feature him in the starting lineup at the 5, but you could definitely anchor him at the center position in a lineup with 5 guys in it. And for Boston, they said this isn't really a starting 5 they're rolling out. This is an experimental phase. And I'd assume the same for Philadelphia. There's a lot for these guys to see, and you should always take preseason with a grain of salt. But I think for Philadelphia, you could really put Ben at the 5 and still maintain your defensive wing presence and still have a good interior defense because Ben, he's 6'10", and like I said, Boston will be without a center. Robert Williams, sure, maybe Grant Williams could even slide down and play the 5, but there's no more Enes Kanter. There's no Tristan Thompson there. So maybe Ben could play the 5. You could throw Terrence Ferguson on a wing. Danny Green can defend on the wing. Shake Milton, 6'5", 6'6". He could defend a point guard. And mind you, Boston doesn't really have a serviceable point guard for this game outside of Jeff Teague and Marcus Smart. So if Teague is the starting point guard for a lineup they feature, I can definitely think Philadelphia can keep their perimeter defense intact while moving Ben Simmons to the 5 and seeing what that'll look like. They only did it 1 or 2 times last year, I think, namely against the Brooklyn Nets, and Ben did a pretty good job in that role. So maybe if you give him a different role, play him at the center position, see what it's like defensively, and maybe how the offense will run, that's something I would explore in the preseason where nothing matters.
Okay, I'll tell you what I would do. I would say Tyrese Maxey. And I know point guard. I think I play a point guard.
Okay.
Just because I think like I trust Seth Curry as a ball handler. I do. I don't think it's his natural skill necessarily. But I think it's something that he's developed. And obviously Danny Green should never be dribbling a basketball. I think there's an interesting and a feasible line of thought that says, like, let's see what our first overall pick, or not our first overall pick, our first round pick can do with the ball in his hands. Let's see what that offense looks like with a shooting threat facilitating the mix. And let's see what that looks like, like what Ben looks like off ball in this offense. And I do believe that he can make things a little bit more interesting and more, I guess, unpredictable for the offense, a little bit more spicy. And I think ultimately, whether it's this year, it's a year from now, 2 years from now, my guess is he's probably going to be a starter anyway. I just think he's he's built different, as the kids say.
Why do you say that like you're not 24? What do you mean, as the kids say? Like, come on, you're a kid too. You're 24.
I am not. I am 24, going on like 74. I would say.
Okay, you're an old soul.
Yeah, I'm an old. That's right. I'm an old soul.
Okay.
So I'd be curious just to see like what that looks like. And I'm not saying that's something that I would like endorse long term, like force it to happen this season. Like this isn't the Markelle Fultz situation of 2 years ago, where he's clearly not worthy of starting, but he's starting. But I just think that you a guy that can change speed and be a menace in a half court in a pick and roll and sort of fillet defenses and sort of be knifing through things is kind of an interesting concept with this team, and something that they've never really had a guard like that. You could speed around the ball like a Dinwiddie type. I'm not saying you'd use him with Dinwiddie's level of usage, but he's somebody that you put in a pick and roll, and it's kind of like you're not sure where he's going to go.
Well, the thing I said about Maxey, aside from how good he is in transition, is that his body control is phenomenal. Like in the pick and roll and the half court, he has really good body control. He's got a low center of gravity. He attacks with purpose. But the thing that really made him stand out in these pick and roll scenarios was his vision, his court vision in the half court, and how he could find his big. And this is in college. So he's unselfish in the pick and roll, and he led a lot of his centers to the spot to catch lobs or put them in a position where they can get a clean look at the basket. With a compliment like Dwight Howard, a compliment like Tony Bradley, or even if he is in the starting lineup like Joel Embiid, I think Maxey's going to thrive. I've said this for 3 straight podcasts, but SGA, Gilgeous Alexander and Landry Shamet, when he was traded to the Clippers in his rookie season, both played over 20 minutes a game under Doc Rivers. If the talent is there for both him or Isaiah Joe, Tyrese Maxey and Isaiah Joe will have minutes. Doc Rivers will produce minutes. I think Maxey is most definitely a steal for where Philadelphia got him. And I really think it's going to be interesting to see, is he a primary ball handler in the half court? Is he a complement off-ball ball handler to Ben Simmons? Is he going to improve his three-point jump shot? There's a lot to be seen. But when I watch Maxey on tape, I love him. His first step is the one thing above all that I notice on tape. It's just incredible. He just blows by opponents. And this first step, it's so hard to guard. Now, this was at the college level, so you want to see how that translates to the second level, the NBA professional level. But at the same time, if he could utilize that quick first step, he's going to be such a huge addition for Philadelphia in a half court and in transition too.
Yeah, for sure. Joey D says, Brock, I'm digging the hat, boss.
Sir, thank you. Is that our boy Joey?
I think it is.
Okay. Well, good, Joey.
You never really know what Joey looks like modern Joey looks like until you see him on a live pod. Like because he has the infant avatar, and then he has like this going on. You just never. He's kind of an enigma in a sense.
He's a low profile. I like that. That's how we should keep it.
Whereas me, you recognize my mug immediately. I
don't know, man. That Twitter profile picture was sus for a while until you changed it. You can't be saying that's what the kids say and have a Twitter profile picture that you took when you were 18, a LinkedIn headshot at Villanova.
I took that when I was I think 20.
Oh, 2 years. So you were still at Nova.
Yeah, no, I was a sophomore. Yeah.
You were more productive than I was as a sophomore, I'll say that.
No, I wasn't, trust me. Kevin Cronin says, what do you think the Phillies will do this winter to free agents they will sign or trades they will make?
It's the wrong podcast, big dog.
Oh, man.
It's the wrong pod. I'm repping my city.
How many hours you got? I'm kind of more confident that they're going to re-sign Real Muto. Just because the Mets opted to go for a much cheaper option, and it isn't like they overset the market, they underset it. So now it's like Real Muto probably gets 20 mil per year, which it's still a lot of money, but I don't see how Middleton doesn't go out and sign him.
Well, you bring in Dave Dombrowski, and everybody's complaining that he's a win now guy, and the moves he's going to make are all win now moves, and he's going to deplete the farm system. But my counterpoint is that you haven't had a farm system in 8 years, 10 years, so there's nothing to deplete there. You go for win now moves. That's what the goal of the organization is. If you sign Bryce Harper, a perennial all-star, to a 13-year, $330 million contract, you've got your anchor right there. You've got your stadium filler, your main attraction right there. So the next moves would be to get the surrounding pieces, and it starts with the best catcher offensively and defensively in baseball. Bryce Harper made a great point for him. His pitchers love throwing to a catcher, and that's why I always loved Yadier Molina. The best thing about Yadier Molina, in my opinion, was that he's phenomenal at commanding a pitching staff. When you've got a catcher that pitchers like to throw to and they're comfortable with, it's a huge win defensively too. So the Phillies got to re-sign Real Muto, no doubt.
And I just think it's going to burn a lot of goodwill that they might have around Major League Baseball if they communicate like we don't listen to our star players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it would be horrible if first Philadelphia traded assets for JT and then wasn't able to retain them. But secondly, if you were to sign with a team like the New York Mets or the Atlanta Braves, or I guess even hell, the Marlins, all in the NL East, it would just be embarrassing at that point. So I don't know what Middleton's got going on with this frugal bullshit, because he's a Philadelphia baseball owner. Wow. And in baseball, there's literally unlimited cap. You could go out and sign whoever you want for however much you want if you're a big market team. So if you're trying to win now and you're trying to put a product on the field that's going to deliver that, it starts with signing JT Realmuto. You can't lose him. It's that simple.
As the kids say, no cap.
Oh boy, what's the next question, man? Let's act like that didn't happen. Come on.
NBA guy says, hearing good things about Maxey. Hopefully he's good enough to contribute this year.
He will.
You usually don't have positive impact rookies, especially on good teams. I think he is going to be on a short rope because Doc traditionally doesn't trust rookies. But what I would say is I think there's just this sort of aura about him that I just think that he's going to be one of those guys you look back on and you say, yeah, he slid way too low. I don't know why we didn't take him at 10 or 14.
I could definitely agree with that. In Austin, we could name more players from Kentucky in the past 8 years on our hands combined that are instant contributors and all-stars and impactful players in the NBA. So first off, I like that Philadelphia went and got a kid from Kentucky. Second off, he's training with Chris Johnson Hoops, and CJ is one of the most renowned shot trainers and basketball trainers in the entire NBA. Everybody goes to CJ when they want to learn how to get buckets and perfect their form. So he's in the lab with not only CJ, but guys like Rajon Rondo and et cetera. So I think he's going to be an immediate contributor. He might not be an immediate starter, and he most definitely might not be an all-rookie team player right away, but he's definitely going to be an immediate contributor. I think he's going to be great in the second unit and potentially in that first unit if he shows enough promise there.
For sure.
I mean, look, the last Kentucky guard is now apparently an MVP. Teams won't even trade Ty Hero for James Harden. That was the last Kentucky guard that a couple
of my God. That shit is something else. I mean, like what are we doing here that all of a sudden like Tyler friggin' Hero is untradeable? Like who do you think this kid is? He averaged 16 points per game in the playoffs. Okay. I mean, he was very clearly like the second or third scoring option on the team. I mean, he's not untradeable for a guy like James Harden. I was like blown away by that. So, but yeah, I mean, the Harden stuff is really, really interesting because everyone's saying like Houston doesn't have any leverage, which I tend to lean towards agreeing with, but I don't think it's like, oh, he requested out. That's it. No leverage. I got to trade him right now for like a mediocre to bullshit package. I don't agree with that at all. I mean, you have the best player. He's not just the best player in the trade. He's he's a lock, a guarantee as a top 10 player in the NBA. So, I mean, you're not going to sell him for Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, and a poo-poo platter. You're not going to do that. It's adorable when fans think that. You're not going to get them and take on horrible money when they just traded for John Wall and then give up a top 5 player. I mean, if they do, and I'm not going to make any promises because I know that as soon as I do that, it'll probably come true and then I'll have to do it. But I would be confounded and blown away if Houston accepted a trade of like Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, and whomever else you wanted to throw in there. But I do agree. I think the trade is far off. Morey's move so far seemed committed as a current nucleus. Would have to upset quite a few pieces to crowbar Harden in. And I'll tell you this, I don't think they're going to wait like a month before they say like, okay, it's not working, then pull a plug. Like, no, they've spoken about they've spoken about like, hey, let's give this time. Let's see what this looks like. Let's collect a lot of data and make a decision. We'll make an informed decision. That's not going to be a month's worth of data for them to make a decision on. And that's a pretty significant, that isn't like, who do you trade for to get the eighth guy on the bench? That's okay. Do we trade a top 20 player with 5 years of control left for a guy who is 31, clearly high maintenance and has, and just 2 years of control left? It doesn't matter if one's a top 5 player or a top 20 player. That's in a vacuum. Sure. It's not as simple as that, I don't think, because here's what happens. And I kind of came to this conclusion on Friday night. I remember I was thinking about this a lot. Obviously, we both agree that trading for James Harden probably raises the Sixers ceiling and increases their chances of winning a title, right?
Yeah.
Is Philadelphia a market that is particularly patient?
Hell no, absolutely not.
So the Eagles won the Super Bowl 2 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. 3 years ago. We are now. It hasn't even been 5 years. It's been 3 years. Literally, there are key pieces from that team that are still on the roster and are signed to the roster for years to come.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that fresh, and the city is already up in arms about it, about the team. So they're not patient. They're going to forget about any championship you win in the next year. And let's be frank here. Like everyone says like, oh, like the ring makes everything better. The championship lasts like for a night where you're like over the moon ecstatic. You brag about it for like the rest of the off season. And that really is just like a clout piece that you wear around your neck because it's like, well, this team won a championship, and the fans on Twitter or whatever, or you get to brag about it, and no one can say shit to them. It goes away really fast because time moves quickly. It's time to regroup and get ready for the next season. And complacency is the enemy of winning. So you're never really satisfied with one championship. So even if they win, and Harden walks, let's say he walks, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've now mortgaged your youngest, highest ceiling piece for James Harden, who is now gone, and you're giving up what? How many first round picks? 3, according to your own Weitzman.
Yeah.
Listen. James Harden is a phenomenal player, but I don't really care like what Sixers Adam says in his tone that he says it in. I don't really care what Spike Eskin says or how often he wants to subtweet Ben Simmons about like jump shooting and whatnot. It's not an easy decision. It's not as cut and dry as James Harden is better right now, and therefore you got to trade James Harden. I think it's a decision where you ultimately say, in this regime, with Joel Embiid as your best player, with operating in the belief that you have a 3-year window, yeah, maybe it's a trade you got to make. It's a hard pill to swallow, but maybe it's a trade you got to make. But I'm damn sure not giving up 3 first-round picks for him. I mean, you can't do that, because if Harden leaves you out to dry, you now have a 29, 30-year-old center who the narrative is he's injury prone, and then you have Tyrese Maxey. And then what are your other assets besides that? You don't really have any other assets besides that. Tobias Harris is a negative asset. I mean, Matisse Thybulle's nice. Shake Milton's nice. You're basically on the verge of a rebuild with a piece that is 29 and isn't going to have much value in the market because he's injury prone, and people are scared of paying big for a guy that is 7 foot whatever and is injury prone. That's just the cold, hard truth of the matter. This is not an easy trade to make. This is not a blink. Oh, done. Like, goodbye, Ben. Like, I'll drive you to the airport. That's not. The fans can't think that way. It's not as simple as that. You have to think a little further. And I think if I'm the one making the decision, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. You don't trade for James Harden. And I don't think it's an easy decision to come to. And I think I could be swayed in a bunch of different directions on this, and maybe my answer is different tomorrow. But I just feel like right now, 2 years of control. He's obviously reckless. He's out partying in Vegas up until this week in the middle of the COVID of a pandemic, putting his teammates at risk and whatnot. I don't know what the chemistry looks like with Embiid. I don't know how he fits into a Doc Rivers system. And I'll tell you this, whoever he goes to, Sixers or not, it's not going to be the Harden show there. It's going to be like, you're going to buy into what we want to do. That was that was Houston's game. Clearly didn't work. We're going to do it our way. And you can be a part of it and we can win a title, or you can hold us back.
Well, listen, Kobe Bryant said until James Harden alters his game style, he's never going to win a championship. So to your final point, I agree. If he wants to win a championship, especially in the Western Conference, he's going to have to alter his game style. Now, in part, it was due to Mike D'Antoni, and that's something that Mike, the NBA guy, commented. He completely enabled James Harden in this system. But at the same time, if you've got a guy that isolates more often than 29 other teams in the NBA, you need to alter your game style if you haven't won doing that already. A second point I'd like to make, Austin, is that I'd be hypocritical if I got on a podcast last week and talked about the hypocrisy in sports media and the treatment of athletes and inaccurate portrayals and false narratives. I would be such a hypocrite to say that I believe wholeheartedly all of these James Harden rumors. Now, some of them I think are true, but at the same time, it's really difficult for me to come to a decision here on what James Harden truly wants to do, because I'm not speaking to James Harden and I'm not speaking to anybody in his camp. Because of that, I don't know what's getting leaked to who. I don't know who's making what up for views, and I really don't know where his head is at. If I'm James Harden and he really wants out of Houston, he doesn't think he could win in the West, he wants to go East, sure. But I don't know that. So right now, I think it's a lot of smoke screening. I think there's a lot of reports coming out from Houston's behalf. I think there's a lot of reports coming from third parties that may not actually have an understanding of the situation. So because I don't know what James Harden is thinking, I really can't tell you what's going on with leverage or any of these reports based on what Houston wants. But what I will say, I don't need any source to confirm this, is that Philadelphia is not trading Ben Simmons this season. He is not going anywhere this season, and I don't need any third-party source to confirm that, okay? I mean, I don't know how many times I have to say this, but Doc Rivers passed up the opportunity to coach in Houston and coach James Harden under Daryl Morey as the president of basketball operations to coach Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid in Philadelphia. He comes here, Daryl Morey comes here. Now Daryl Morey comes here, And he's already made all of these bold predictions. He thinks Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid could potentially be MVP candidates. He said that on his Instagram. He goes on Reddit, doesn't ask me anything, says he can't wait to play or at least watch Ben and Joel play, and he thinks they're going to have fantastic seasons. So he's already given extremely high praise to Ben and Joel. And if that's not enough, he goes out and gives them the best offense they've had since their inception. This is the best offense they've had since both of them have been in the NBA since 2016 when Joel Embiid started playing. This is the best offense they've had. They've got Seth Curry, who's one of the best players that does what he does in the NBA, and rightfully so, one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA. Danny Green, too, one of the best at what he does. You've got Dwight, the first proper center to back up Joel Embiid in recent history. So every move the Sixers have made this offseason has completely catered to the duo of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. There would be absolutely no way that Ben Simmons gets traded this season. And more specifically, for a guy like James Harden, Austin, who you just said, you could argue is reckless, partying in a pandemic, not showing up to practice. The dude has to take 6 consecutive COVID tests before he could go out and ball, right? So there's that flight risk. There's just too many options right now for Philadelphia to go and trade Ben Simmons for James Harden, right? You can still build the nucleus around Ben and Joel. Yeah. If this doesn't work, you can still give them another coach. There's still time. I mean, they're both under 26 years old. They're both under contract for the next 3 seasons at least. So there's still time to make things work. You don't have to blow it up right now. And Austin, I just don't need any source to confirm this. I don't think Philadelphia is trading Ben Simmons this season.
Okay. I agree. But I think we can't downplay this. The salary cap is eventually going to return to normal.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, you're going to see a rising salary cap. And the way things are currently structured, a max player can get a certain percent, up to a certain percentage of that cap total. And I'm pretty confident that by the time Harden's 33 and he's up for a contract, if you trade for him, you're going to probably want to re-sign him, considering, let's say you don't win a championship, because the odds are always, I mean, there's 30 teams in the NBA. Odds are not over 50% that you're winning a championship regardless of who you are. I mean, there's just so many teams around there in the NBA. It's just not how it works. The math doesn't work that way. They might be a favorite to win it, but it's not a lock by any stretch. If you trade for James Harden, you're going to give up a lot of assets. You're going to want to probably re-sign him. By the time he's ready for a new contract, that probably looks like $48 to $55 million per year over 4 or 5 years.
Right now, it's at, I think, like 46 right now. So that's like a $2-3 million increase on an annual basis.
Right. So are you prepared to give a 33-year-old guy $48 to $55 million per year in a salary capped world? I don't know that the answer is necessarily no because of how good he is, but I don't think it's an easy question to answer at all, especially in this market. In Minnesota or in Portland or in Orlando or wherever, when you're all under the same scale as in a salary cap, the answer is probably yes, because you can live with the you can live with the downfall of that if you accomplish that main goal in those markets. That's not how it works in Philly. That's not how it works in Philly. It's 2 or 3 years, and then the fans want more.
And you're going to have to sign Joe too. Joe's going to need a second contract by that time as well. And if you look at anything that's been going on in a year where the salary cap has taken a hit, every player that's under 26 with potential got a max contract. Jason Tatum, Brandon Ingram, Donovan Mitchell, every player under 26 with the potential that Joe and Ben have got a max contract. AD is on his second contract, and he basically got the max. LeBron just got a huge contract. So Joe and Ben have incentive to keep playing hard. They already got their max contract, but if they continue to dominate and continue to play good basketball, they're due for another massive contract. Can Philadelphia afford to pay here? You get one more year, $40 million, the most expensive year on Tobias' contract is his final year. So you've got a final year paying Tobias $40 million. You're probably going to have to give Joe another max level extension. Are you prepared to pay Harden if you trade Ben and your future, you mortgage your future assets, 48, like you said, $50 million at 33 years old? Absolutely not. And then at that point, you couldn't have traded Ben and 3 firsts for him. So logically, I just don't think any trade with Ben Simmons for James Harden makes sense. And that's just my personal opinion.
And that isn't to say that I wouldn't trade Ben Simmons or that like I'm a journalist fanboying for Ben Simmons. I'm not. I would trade Ben Simmons for like Zach LaVine. I would trade Ben Simmons. I would. Well, no. I don't know that I would definitely do it, but I think that's I think that's an easier trade to make than a Harden trade is. I would have I would be very interested in a conversation about Devin Booker, but those guys are within the same age range. They're not as high maintenance, and they aren't going to be in that salary scale by that point. And I think that that's sort of what you have to consider. James Harden's a great player, and he's gonna be a walking playoff berth for whoever he goes to, perennial MVP candidate, all yada yada yada. I don't think that the probability of one championship, let alone 3 or 4, is enough to face the fact that, hey, you're probably going to want to re-sign this guy unless it all goes to hell. And he's going to want $48 to $55 million per year at age 33. I just don't see that. I don't see a world where that is ever justifiable.
Well, I agree, but you did say some stuff that was a little suspect, and I know we argue about these trades all the time. But my question to you would be, how many other Zach LaVines can you name in the league right now?
One. His name is Zach LaVine. He plays for the Bulls.
Come on. You can name plenty of Zach LaVines in the league.
I don't know what you mean by that comment. I don't know what that means.
How many guys can do what Zach LaVine does on a nightly basis? Plays between 2 and 3 positions, give you 20 to 28 points a game, a couple of assists, a couple of rebounds, and plays hard defense. How many guys around the league do that? A lot of them. Maybe not to his level, but on his level, there's at least 10 other guys. There's at least 10 other guys in the NBA that do what Zach LaVine does on a consistent basis, right?
Okay.
Devin Booker, as pure of a scorer as he is, I'd argue he's a top 3 offensive player in the NBA potentially. I think there's at least more guys you can name that can do what Devin Booker does than you can name that do what Ben Simmons does. Would you agree?
Yes.
So there's the end of the discussion for me. I'm not trading Ben Simmons for Zach LaVine. I'm not trading Ben Simmons for Devin Booker. I mean, the kid is 24 years old. He already plays some of the best defense in the entire NBA. He'll go against any number one, and he really did it more than almost every player in the league last year. And offensively, we haven't seen him under a real head coach. Now, I don't want to disrespect Brett Brown because I know that offended some people on the last podcast, but we haven't seen Ben Simmons utilized by a head coach that actually has an offense with pick and rolls, an offense where dribble handoffs occur pretty often, where there's double screens at the top of the perimeter, there's creative, there's movement. We haven't seen Ben unlocked under a head coach yet, other than Brett Brown. So I'm willing to bank on his potential more than I am on the potential of Devin Booker, and I most definitely wouldn't trade Ben Simmons for Zach LaVine because you could find 10, 12, 15 other Zach LaVines in the NBA. And I'm a Zach LaVine fan. Offensively, he's a beast. He's got a whole dribble arsenal. He can hit 3 balls better than probably 75% in the NBA. But at the same time, Zach LaVine has never won anything in his career. I mean, Zach LaVine.
James Harden.
Huh?
Neither is James Harden.
And we just said we wouldn't trade Ben for Harden.
Okay.
So, I mean, Ben in his first 3 years has gotten to the playoffs twice, 50-win seasons in the regular seasons with Brett Brown as the head coach. And yeah, of course, there's offensive flaws, and coaches like Brad Stevens and Eric Spoelstra have exploited the flaws, and he needs to shoot because teams will run zone and teams will sag off on him. But when Ben Simmons has his first real breakout year, and that's crazy to say because he's averaged near triple-double in almost every one of the seasons, when he has his real breakout year where he gets to the line, he's shooting 70% plus from three throw, maybe he implements a jump shot. When he has that year, we're going to be talking about Ben Simmons completely differently than we are right now. And in my opinion, that year is coming soon. You give him a head coach, you unlock him with some weapons around him that kind of optimizes talent. Ben Simmons is one of the rarest talents in the NBA, and I damn sure wouldn't trade him for Zach LaVine.
And keep in mind, I didn't say I would either, but I said it's an easier. It's. I think it's a more interesting conversation than the James Harden idea, because I just don't think it's so cut and dry with James Harden the way that it is.
Not cut and dry with Harden because, like you said, there's the leverage thing, there's the contract thing, there's the flight risk thing. There's too much going on for a Ben Simmons James Harden trade to be clean. But when I look around the league, there's maybe 5 other players that I can name that do what Ben Simmons does, and this is all without the jump shot that everybody's asking for. So over time, he slowly starts to incorporate an offensive game that maybe people start to notice other than me and you, because me and you, we see the talent in Ben. We see what he does. We know what Ben's capable of. When people start to see Ben incorporate more of an offensive game and wake up the national audience, then I think people are going to be talking about Ben in a completely different way they are right now.
Right.
I mean, seriously, like, sure, Giannis, right? Let's take Giannis, for example. It took him 5 years to really develop into the freak that he is now. Put on all this muscle. I'd argue the modern-day Shaq in the way that he can get a bucket any possession he wants, and if he doesn't drive to the basket, then the defense is having a sigh of relief. Thank God this guy didn't just take the easiest shot on the floor. But how many guys can you name in the NBA that are as dominant offensively, the open floor in transition, spreading the basketball court vision as a passer, exploiting mismatches in the post, as Ben Simmons at 6'10", he can play the point. So there's that. And then on the other side of the ball, defense, which is equally as important, they're going to strap up every single night, look at the opponent and say, whoever your number one option is, I'm checking him. There's less than 5, 6 guys in the league that possess those traits. Anthony Davis, Giannis Antetokounmpo, LeBron. And when you look at all of these guys, they're incredible ball players, but even some of them don't guard opponents' number ones. Like Milwaukee, they scheme defensively so Giannis doesn't have to defend number ones. It happened plenty last year. He might be an anchor defensively, and Giannis is a freak. I love Giannis. But the thing with Giannis is he's not guarding opponents' number one all the time. Kawhi Leonard isn't guarding opponents' number one all the time. LeBron James isn't guarding opponents' number one all the time. But Ben Simmons consistently is guarding the number one option every single game defensively. And for that, I think his potential is one of the highest in the NBA.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so I want to discuss one thing involving quotes from press conferences. So Doc has said multiple times that he doesn't care if Ben shoots the ball, and he's he doesn't think it's overblown, yada yada yada. Do you believe that he means that he cares that Ben doesn't shoot the ball?
Honestly, that's one of the only things I believe that Doc Rivers has said this offseason. Doc is a PR genius. Daryl's a PR genius.
Wait, so you believe it's true?
I believe it's true. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I know.
The thing I don't believe is every single day after a practice, Mike Scott's the MVP, man. He had the best practice I've seen in his career. Tyrese Maxey, Ben Simmons. I think, yeah, they're gassing guys up and they're getting people excited. But this is the one statement that Doc said where I actually believe it.
I don't believe it
at all.
I don't know
why you wouldn't. What makes you think that Doc Rivers isn't telling the truth with that?
Because he's come from an organization where they turned Blake Griffin into a respectable shooter.
Blake Griffin turned himself into a respectable shooter in Detroit. He didn't even have a three ball.
That's not true.
He didn't even have a three ball. He didn't even have a three ball with the Clippers. Come on.
Brock. Come on. Maybe it wasn't as prolific as it had become in Detroit, but he definitely became a better jump shooter under Doc. That's not even a question. He did. Rock. He did.
Continue. Are you gonna give me more?
Okay. Sorry. I didn't realize. So then you have Kawhi and you have Paul George, two more, wings and ball handlers that can create and can shoot the ball. I just think that he knows you have to have wings that can create shots, or that maybe he doesn't. Maybe it's not a fact to him, but he believes it. And I just think that right now it's about endearing himself to Ben Simmons, because I think Ben was favoring the idea of Ty Lue, whereas Embiid wanted Doc, and he's trying to get both of his stars to back him. But I just think that Doc must believe it. I mean, he has a chance to tell working on jump shooting with Ben right now.
Austin, I'm not saying you don't know who, bro, but I've been watching Blake Griffin for a minute. Blake Griffin is one of my favorite players in the league, right? I love Blake.
Everybody is your favorite player in the league. Boogie is your favorite player.
Boogie's my favorite player. Boogie is hands down my favorite player, and Ben is a close two. Kobe's my GOAT, my favorite of all time. I love the sport. I watch all NBA, so I've got a ton of favorites. But Austin, I'm telling you, bro, Blake Griffin incorporated the three ball after his injury when he went to Detroit. And to further reinforce my point, I just ran the numbers, and it's not good for you. I don't know if you want me to read them on air, but here. In his first, what's this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In his first 6 seasons with the Clippers, okay, he never made more than 12 threes in a season. His highest total was 12 threes made in his first 6 years. Then he hit 38 and 64. So he never made more than 64 threes as a Los Angeles Clipper, okay? He goes to Detroit. And he made 189 and 111. The closest he ever got in almost 10 years as a Clipper was 64 made threes. That's how many threes a center shoots and makes. So he didn't alter his jump shot under Doc Rivers. He didn't even shoot the three ball under Doc Rivers. He did that in Detroit. And Paul George and Kawhi were already notorious for shooting the three ball. Kawhi's a guy that averages 29 points a game. Of course he has a three ball, PG too. But Doc Rivers isn't going to force Ben Simmons to shoot the jump shot because he knows what Ben has. He knows what we've talked about. If you look at Miami, if you look at Milwaukee, even LeBron out in Los Angeles, these guys have the three ball and they can shoot it. They're world-class hoopers. But why shoot it if you can take the defense as deep into the paint as possible and kick it to a guy that can actually shoot it, that gets paid to shoot it? So that's what Philadelphia is doing. That's what they're doing with Seth Curry. That's what they're doing with Danny Green. It's a copycat league, and the Sixers are copying, okay? So what they're going to do is enable Ben Simmons as a ball handler and off live rebounds to do what he does. Get the ball, put it on the floor, go full court, coast to coast, and either take a layup, get to the free throw line, or find an open look for a guy on the perimeter. But to think that Doc Rivers is going to come in, lie about it, and then Ben Simmons is automatically going to add this jump shot, it's ridiculous. It's not going to happen.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I do believe that he values it more than what he's led on to the media. I think that's 100% the case. I just don't believe that he believes that. I believe there are a very select few who believe that Ben truly does have to add a jump shot. I believe that he thinks it. And I listen, maybe Blake, I'll admit that maybe I was wrong. I ran my years together with Blake, but there's no way you can read those numbers and tell me that he wasn't an improved jump shooter over his time with the Clippers.
He made less than 64 threes in almost 10 years.
What's the trajectory? What else? He actually went from 12 to 38 to 64. That's improvement.
What is that? 40 more threes a season? He made 111 a season and almost 200 in Detroit.
But it's still tangible improvement. He attempted them.
30 more threes a season. Yeah, of course it's tangible improvement, but it's not enough to say, yeah, this guy improved drastically as a shooter in Los Angeles. He went from 12 to 38, which is what, 14, 20 more threes a season, then from 38 to 60. Like, if he went from 34 to 111, sure, absolutely. But he never made more than 65 threes a season. He was never a shooter in Los Angeles. It was in Detroit where he altered his game.
Talking about a guy who we can't, who the Sixers cannot get. What? They can't get Ben to shoot what, more than 6 in a season?
What?
6 threes in a season? So any step,
might be able to get him to shoot 6 threes a season. That's not any different than what's happened for the past 3 years.
Listen, anything that they can get will be a step up from Ben Simmons. Again, do I think he has to become a shooter? No, I've advocated that for years. I don't think he has to become a shooter. But I don't know if I'm using this right. As the kids say, I call cap on Doc Rivers for that.
I can't believe that of everything Doc Rivers has said this offseason, that Furkan Korkmaz blew him away and Furkan's got a big role. And Mike, of everything Doc has said, you chose that not to believe it. That he said, listen, Ben's our guy. I'm committing to Ben. I know what Ben has. If he doesn't shoot, I'm not too worried about it.
I'm not saying that he doesn't believe in Ben Simmons.
I know, but I'm saying of everything he said, that's what you chose not to believe?
Yeah, I just don't believe it's the case.
See, that's where I'm losing you. Like Doc coached Rajon Rondo, and Doc didn't have a problem with what Rondo did.
Well, that's a good point. But it's also a different era of basketball.
I guess, but he also coached DeAndre and Blake Griffin. And he utilized them. But the difference between Ben Simmons and the people I just named is that Ben Simmons is a hybrid of Rajon Rondo and Blake Griffin in one. If you take what Rajon Rondo does as a playmaker, a ball handler, and a passer, and combine it with Blake Griffin's height and his athleticism, you've got a 6'10" Ben Simmons right there. Yeah, okay. Why don't you show the comments in support of me?
Were there any? Oh, there were. Okay, yes. Wait. Let's see. Facts. He did turn himself into a shooter with Detroit.
Yeah, we got somebody that watches the whole NBA.
But Tim Guys did this too. Paul George is overrated with the Thunder, and he's not on Ben Simmons' level. That's where you're going with it.
I don't know. You said that though. You were the one that.
That's not what.
You brought up Paul George. I didn't bring him up. You brought up Paul George.
You are capping, my friend.
You brought up Paul George.
This is no okay. This is no. The rookie, Brock is smart. He is smart. He's wrong here. I think you're very wrong.
He watches the entire NBA. Austin Krell doesn't. That's the difference here.
What? I'm sitting here on my weekends watching preseason games. The thing that I mean, sure, yeah, you watch basketball. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but the thing that you're losing me here on is that you're using terms too technically. So yeah, you can look at, well, Blake Griffin went from 12 threes to 64. Of course, that's a shooting improvement. Doc Rivers was his coach for the first 6 seasons where Blake didn't make more than 12 threes in a season. Okay. Blake slowly incorporates the J. He makes 34. He made 68. Doc is still the coach. That's fine, right? But that's nothing compared to making 111 and almost 200 in the next 2 seasons on a different team. That indicates to me he didn't shoot the 3 ball in Los Angeles. He didn't have to shoot the 3 ball in Los Angeles. It wasn't a priority in Los Angeles. And he didn't do it. If he only made 64 in a season, he didn't do it. That's how many a center makes, a backup center makes in the NBA now. But the fact that he made 100 plus in his first season after the Clippers, and then he made almost 200 in the season after that, the jump from 111 and 200 compared to 12 to 34 is a way completely different jump
than from 34 to 68. It's monumentally different. So, I mean, Blake Griffin is a three-ball shooter. He's a world-class hooper. But that didn't happen in Los Angeles under Doc. I'm just telling you, you can watch. It happened in Detroit.
Justin says, you got to be more technical, Krell. Come on, man. Listen, our rookie is getting on my last nerves. We gotta have an initiation. Brock, what do you think of Jalen Hurts?
What do I think of Jalen Hurts? It depends who's watching. I don't want to get no, I'm kidding. I like Jalen Hurts, man. This is coming from a guy that's never really liked Carson Wentz. My dad and I both have never really liked Carson Wentz. I don't have an agenda against him. I just don't think he's a coachable player. I don't know if he's a likable player. There's always been these reports coming from Eagles players in the locker room, and although they're conflicting sometimes, there's just plenty of stuff that I've thought were red flags throughout his career. Coach is complaining that he's not receptive in practice. Coach is complaining and wants to implement his own style. Players complaining. I just never thought he was a coachable player. The Eagles are so far in a hole right now with his money. It's not even funny. But I like Jalen Hurts. I think he's a dual threat quarterback, and from what I saw, he's an accurate passer. He could use his legs to wheel out a first down better than I think Wentz could right now. So I'm all for it. I mean, if they're going to commit to him for the rest of the season, sure, but just commit to it, right? You're not making the playoffs. I mean, I guess they're in the NFC East, so you never know, but I think a draft pick would be more valuable than the team around right now. So if you're not going to make the playoffs, just commit.
He's Brock Landis. I am Austin Krell. You can find him on Twitter at LandisBrock. You can find me on Twitter at NBA Krell. Brock, any parting shots?
No parting shots from me. None tonight, man. None tonight. I think my good people on Twitter have noticed what I've been kind of saying with my children out there. People are taking notice of that. I don't have any children. I'm only 20 years old. But Austin, you know what I'm talking about.
I do. There's been some content thievery out there from Brock Fields. This was for sure. He is Brock Landis. I am Austin Krell. We might be back in the next couple of days to talk about the Sixers preseason game. There is a chance that I do think we're gonna be. I think there's a chance that we're going to be doing this more often than once a week now that we're in season, and there's a lot more to discuss. But be sure again to subscribe to us on YouTube at the Painted Line. Subscribe to Brock.
Stay solid, baby. Stay solid.
Yeah,
I see you. Stay solid.
There you go. Stay solid. You can find us on Twitter at LandisBrock at NBA Krell. Sure to subscribe on SoundCloud. Brock, I applied to get us SoundCloud verified, so maybe we'll be getting our badge next week.
I'll have to get the rainbow colored dreads. I'll have to grow some different face tats. We're going to be SoundCloud verified.
And you can find us on Apple Pods as well. As always, everybody, appreciate you tuning in. Sixers play tomorrow night at 7:30 on NBC Sports Philly and TNT. I will be either covering the game not in person, but either via Zoom. I'll certainly have my my instant reactions to the game available online. It is the work of a beat writer, I might add. As always, thank you for tuning in, everybody. Have a good night.